Dr. Sahasrabuddhe is a nationalist social worker at heart and a researcher cum student of political science. He has been member of parliament of the Rajya Sabha between 2016 to 2022. From 2018 to 2024, he headed the Indian Council for Cultural Relations as its president. From 2020 till 2022, he was also the chairman of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Education, Women, Children, and Youth and Sports, currently appointed as the chairman of the State Cultural Policy Implementation Committee. He also is looking as the chairman of the Finance Committee of Prime Minister's Museum and Library in New Delhi. He studied at the Garware and SP colleges in Pune. In 1974, almost after immediately joining the degree college, he became a member of the Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad (ABVP). While in ABVP, he joined Satyagraha movement against the draconian rule of the emergency, for which he was imprisoned for almost 2 months in 1975. A postgraduate in English literature, Dr. Sahasrabuddhe later earned his PhD both from the University of Mumbai. After shouldering national level responsibilities, he had briefly stints in journalism and corporate communications. A founder director, in 1988, he joined the Rambhau Malgi Prabodhini, a unique academy established to build the capacities of elected representatives and politicians in Mumbai. As its founder, since 2016, he is the vice chairman of Prabodhini. In the past, Dr. Sahasrabuddhe has worked on Management Council of the University of Mumbai between 2012 and 2015. He was also the vice president of two-century-old Asiatic Society of Mumbai. Dr. Sahasrabuddhe has authored and edited over half a dozen books in Marathi and English, couple of which have received distinguished awards. The recent one, The Art of Implementations, edited by Dr. Sahasrabuddhe, has a bunch of chapters contributed by stalwarts like Srimati Nirmala Sitaraman, Sanjeev Sanyal, and others. I invite Dr. Sahasrabuddhe to enlighten us with his thoughts.
Father Keith D'Souza, या महाविद्यालयाच्या प्राचार्य डॉक्टर करुणा गोकर्ण, ब्रिगेडियर प्रमोद मिश्रा, अर्चना मिश्रा, अर्थशास्त्र विभागाच्या प्रमुख डॉक्टर कुलकर्णी आणि इथे या भाषणासाठी व्याख्यानासाठी जमलेले विद्यार्थी मित्र आणि मैत्रिणी. Don't be scared, I'm not going to speak in Marathi, but this is about culture, and culture starts with swa. Culture starts with your identity. And since we are in Maharashtra, my mother tongue is Marathi, so naturally I must pay tribute to the state where I am, where I belong to, and to the language of the people over here, which is why I made it a point to start in Marathi. Friends, I know it's about 12 noon and more than food for thought, but as the thought of food might be completing your ideas and your thinking, let me share with you an anecdote which goes with the well-known scientist, globally renowned Albert Einstein. It's an anecdote, may not be true, but while addressing students of your kind, it always comes to mind. When Einstein came out with his relativity theory, almost a century before, he was always, invited to deliver lectures. And he almost had to go on a lecture giving spree, kind of. So when he was about to deliver his 120th lecture, he was pretty bored. And therefore he was sharing with his driver very candidly that I'm extremely bored and I really don't know why do I go and deliver such lectures, play the long play record of my relativity theory, which is so very important for me, but the audience doesn't understand. Their faces remain blank, and it's very sickening to go and every day, here or there, I keep on delivering lectures. And I don't know how do I get rid of this. The driver told him politely, but sir, I'm also one of the compulsory members of the audience. So by this time, I have almost by-hearted your lecture. And those were not the days of Facebook or social media. So nobody knew how exactly Mr. Einstein looks like. And therefore, the driver very humbly suggested, but very creatively rather, that let me act as Albert Einstein. I'll go and myself present as Einstein. Nobody knows you that way from your face. You sit in the audience quietly, take a nap or two or whatever, and then at least test my ability to deliver a lecture. Einstein said, let's give a trial to this. And therefore, when all, I mean, both of them went to the venue of the function, the organizers introduced eulogizingly Albert Einstein. The driver was sitting there, and he was called very respectfully on the podium, and he started delivering a lecture. Einstein was sitting there. And believe me, his driver gave a wonderful lecture without any mistake, flawless. Hindi में बोलते हैं ना धारा प्रवाह, like that. And therefore everybody was deeply impressed. Einstein was also very wonderstruck that the driver didn't commit even a single mistake. And there was a round of applause. And then the driver again went over there. The organizers came and they said, what a wonderful lecture. Now it is the time for questions and answers. So Einstein was wondering how exactly this driver now plays with the question. When the first question came, the driver came again on the podium and said, what a simple question. Why should I answer this? Let my driver stand up and answer this question. And there was a round of applause to the answer given by Mr. Albert Einstein. So the moral of the story is that delivering lecture is comparatively easy. Listening to them is a bit difficult. And I'm aware of that, which is why I'm not going to make it very difficult. But in a more of a conversational style, I would like to share some of my thoughts about Viksit Bharat and the cultural economy of this country. Let's deal with the idea of Viksit Bharat to start with. I mean, if you visit the website of the World Bank or maybe the IMF or any such organization, you will come across some definitions as to what is developing, what is underdeveloped, and what is developed. So our country has been known as a developing country for decades together. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has made us aspire to become a developed country. And therefore, the Viksit Bharat is now a part of our day-to-day conversations as well. It has gained some currency. There are 7-8 features of being a developed country, if I may put it that way. First of all, quality of life. Naturally, and it's something which every one of us would expect. Good health care, good education system, and good, what they call as social support as well. So these are some of the characteristics of quality of life, even though they don't depend upon only 3 or 4 factors, as we know. Strong economy, which is about a strong GDP, diversified infrastructure and other services. Then advanced technological infrastructure, like what we have now started in our country, along with information technology. We are now talking about all the emerging technologies and how we can take them to our stride in our path to becoming a Viksit Bharat. Dominant service sector, of course, this is one of the very strong points about Indian economy. I'm not a student of economics too, but still, high level of human development index and continuity with change. I mean, any civilizational society, and more in the context of India, I believe continuity with change is something very, very critical. We are not a country which was born on 15th August 1957, remember. We are a millennia-old civilization. Our very senior politician and currently governor of Bihar, Arif Mohammad Khan, very eloquently uses the term that India is ever aging, never old. In Sanskrit, there is a beautiful term for this which goes like Nitya Nutan Chirapura. So remember, for a civilizational society like India, for a civilizational country like India, to move towards Viksit Bharat is all the more important. At the same time, it is not without any challenges, without any complications, without any intricacies that we may have to face. But the importance of this, and especially when an alumnus of this institution like Shruti has decided to institute this lecture over here in memory of very renowned economist Padma Desai. It also underscores the fact of our Guru Shishya Parampara, the teacher and taught relationship. It is a part of our national heritage. It is not something simply because some national education policy has put emphasis on this. It was there. If Ram and Krishna decided to go to the homes of their gurus and take instructions right in the precincts of their houses, it was not because their own homes were very small, like one room kitchen, and therefore they cannot accommodate their gurus over there. It was learning through illustrations, teaching and learning through illustrations. And therefore, Guru Shishya Parampara, teacher taught relationship, is something very, very critical to our culture. I must refer to that and pay my respects also at the outset to Padma Desai and appreciate the move or the suggestion coming from Shruti Mishra to have this kind of a lecture instituted over here. My gratitude and appreciation to Shruti and my humble tributes to Padma Desai. Friends, when it comes to our culture, because we are talking about cultural economy, see, culture is all about our identity, as I mentioned right at the beginning also. And therefore, let us not undermine our identities. And let us also understand that we have to live with multiple identities simultaneously. And there is nothing wrong about it. Only thing is that our smaller identities should eventually merge into a larger identity. For example, we are in St. Xavier's College. I come from Ruya College. I had my studies in Ramnarayan Ruya College. So we Ruyites take pride in being an ex-Ruya student, likewise you also. There is nothing wrong about it. People may at times say that what is so great about it? You could have taken admission at any other college, and what makes it very special? But then it makes certainly very special because your ethos provides a special place for your alma mater. And therefore, identity is something very, very critical. We are Indians first. All other identities are also incorporated in that identity. And as Indians, we are out to make a mark on the global scene, which is why cultural economy is extremely important. And even otherwise, economy as such cannot be delinked from social sciences. Economics is a social science after all, and therefore it has everything to do with society. And when you talk about society, it is not just demography, it is also culture. It is not just the numbers, it is also people with their emotions, with their ideas, with their aspirations, with their past. I mean, there are many philosophers. I'm sure some of them you might have studied as well. Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyaya had once beautifully mentioned that the civilizational journey of any civilization, India, of course, is not an exception, is from the past through the present to the future. So there is a continuity. And those who have studied the various civilizations will tell you that India is unique because the civilizational journey of India is continuous. There is no break. While in other civilizations, there are some breaks as well. In the context of India, there is no break, which is why our culture is extremely important because that culture makes us Indian. And I must mention over here that I'm sure you must have, you're all students of economics. So you must have read the book, which is The World is Flat. Have you? You must read. It's by a journalist. And he tries to emphasize on the fact that post-globalization, the level playing field is now available for every other society, every other country, every other people. And therefore, he's saying that the world is flat. And in the economics context, the flattening of the world is perhaps welcome. It's a good idea. But culturally, if we allow the flattening of the world, I must tell you, will become less beautiful. I had the occasion of visiting Beijing and later on visiting Tel Aviv also. I could not help but get a feeling in both these capitals that Beijing, I realized that perhaps I am in a Mandarin America. And in Tel Aviv, I came across a Hebrew America. Except for the language, it is America all around. Thankfully, either in Connaught Circus in Delhi or Flora Fountain in Mumbai, you don't get that feel. Our Indianness is very much alive, and that makes us Indian. Otherwise, we would be just any other. And in that context also, as I said, our identity and our culture are extremely critical. Just to give you some insight into the economic or the size of the economic transactions that go with several of our festivities. Now it is a festive season in our country. Ganesh Utsav, for example, which goes with Maharashtra, basically, researchers tell me that 20,000 crore is the total size of transactions that happen during the Ganesh Utsav. Durga Puja, it is 32,000 crore. Uttar Pradesh, for example, recently tried to work on all its monuments of a heritage stature, whether the Kashi Vishwanath corridor or the Ayodhya temple. And in 2016, for example, the share of Uttar Pradesh in domestic tourism within India was just about 13.1%. In 2024, it has risen to 20%. So that is how people get attracted. We have a huge number of artisans in India. They are into various kinds of media as well. I mean, people who are goldsmiths, people who are into other metals, or people who are into woodcraft. And all these artisans, as per the government portal, at least 1 crore artisans are active today. I'm sure the number must be much more, but 1 crore who have registered themselves on a particular government portal. And not just our traditional artisans, but modern day, for example, our movies also play a key role. For example, in India, annually we produce, as the statistics go, almost 1,500 to 2,000 movies, and in multiple languages. There is a very strong Tamil film culture, Bengali film culture, Marathi film culture, Kannada film culture, of course. So this is the volume, this is the size of cultural economy which is already in existence. So now how do we link it to Viksit Bharat? And how do we build upon the cultural treasure that we have, handed over to us by our forefathers. So we have to build upon that. How do we build? Take one example of our Bollywood movies. We are in Mumbai, which is and I would also not like to call it Bollywood. Why should we ape Hollywood? These are Indian movies. We did not. See, aping is not a good idea. I mean, global community will also understand Indian movies are different and Hollywood is a different genre. So Indian movies, if I may tell you, there are huge number of fans of Raj Kapoor and Mithun Chakravarti and Shah Rukh Khan all over the world. As President ICCR, I had the occasion of visiting Samarkand and Bukhara universities in Uzbekistan. And in both the universities, the Indian delegation was received with all enthusiasm amongst the students, teachers, and the employees also. And there was a university band playing the tune of Avara. I'm sure you have heard the song Avara. So they still remember. They have that memories of Raj Kapoor era, and they adored Indian films, Indian film stars, Indian heroes. In another country, for example, Kazakhstan, some of the people who are again diehard fans of Indian movies, Tulsi Tere Angan Ki, Main Tulsi Tere Angan Ki, I mean, one of the very famous TV serials over there. They told me, and here comes again the importance of identity. They told me that now we are a different country, Kazakh, Uzbek, and we have our national language. But unfortunately, your country exports movies with Russian subtitles. We don't want Russian subtitles, we want Kazakh subtitles. We have to now address these emerging needs of countries. Do we have as many departments teaching Kazakh and Uzbek language in our country? Sadly, we don't. Unfortunately, one of the great pains in my heart is that our country has ignored most of the neighborhood languages. 5 years before, when our nation celebrated the 100th death anniversary of Lokmanya Tilak, who died just few meters away at Sardar Grove here in Mumbai. So 2020 was the death centenary year of Lokmanya Tilak. And one of the officials of ICCR had been to Mandle or Mandale, whatever we call it, in Myanmar. That time, Mrs. Aung San Suu Kyi was not in prison. And therefore, he had some interaction with Aung San Suu Kyi. She was a part of the government. And Aung San Suu Kyi said that I have heard about Lokmanya Tilak, his imprisonment in Mandle. And I also heard about Gita Rahasya. And I desire to read the book, the seminal work by Lokmanya Tilak, but make it available to me in Burmese language. And here comes the challenge. Because Burma or Myanmar, one of the closest countries, neighborhood countries, unfortunately in our country, there is only one university, which is the Central University of Manipur, where Burmese language is taught and some 5 to 6 students take the courses over there. Very sad. We have Sri Lanka, one of the great neighbors of our country. In Sri Lanka, there are many people who learn Hindi, but unfortunately in our country, not a single university teaches Sinhala language. We need to pay attention to this if our cultural economy is to grow leaps and bounds. Why I am saying so? Because all these countries, especially the Southeast Asia and South Asia, are and have been under the great influence of Indian epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata. Again, a significant aspect of our culture and therefore cultural economy as well. And make no mistake, Ramayana and Mahabharata, regardless of the fact that Ram is a kind of deity for many of us, and even Sri Krishna for that matter, but these epics do not have anything to do with your way of worship. They are a treasure of the entire humanity. In fact, it would be good to consider whether like BIMSTEC and UNCTAD and SARC and so many other global forums, whether we can have an association of Rama and Mahabharata countries. I'm sure at least 20 countries will come together because their civilizational roots are also, they believe, are in Ramayana and Mahabharata. Our Indian Council for Cultural Relations keep organizing Ramayana festival. Because there are many countries who have their own Ramayana tradition and they make a beautiful presentation along with dance, music, and everything. So, in one of these years, I think 2018, when we organized a Ramayana festival, a group came from Brunei. Now, Brunei, we had sent invitations to many countries, sent an invitation to Brunei also. Then our officials realized that Brunei is a country where 100% population are the followers of Islam. So they may not be sending a delegation, a cultural troop, because they are all worshippers of Islam. But then they came, a decent group of 15 young artists, and presented the Jatayu Vada story of Ramayana. Beautiful. Later on, over a cup of tea, when our officials were having a dialogue with them, they said we were apprehensive whether you will come or not. The Brunei leader told our officials that you are making a mistake. We have changed our religion, not our culture. So culture transcends your religion, your way of worship. And therefore, culture has an important role. Not only this, in 2017, I guess, the then president of Iran visited India and he had a conversation with our prime minister. And in their dialogue, one thing figured that both the countries have a common heritage which is symbolized by Maharshi Panini. I don't know how many of you have heard the name of Panini. Have you? Those who have heard, I must congratulate them. So Panini was a great grammarian, known for giving the linguistic structure to Sanskrit and to Persian at the same time. Because in Persian also you will find many words which have their origin in Sanskrit. In fact, there are people in Syria who tell us that Syria has come from Surya. Because we are a country, in those days we were basically sun worshippers, and therefore Surya later on became Syria, whatever it may be. So when the suggestion came from the Iranian president himself that we should be celebrating the common legacy of Maharshi Panini, it was decided to organize an international conference on the contribution of Panini as a grammarian. And we requested the University of Tehran. They were kind enough to organize a global conference. Many of us went over there. When we were having a cup of tea with the vice chancellor of the Tehran University, he told me that we teach Ved and Upanishad in Tehran University. Tell me, in which university in India Ved and Upanishad are a part of your syllabus? And I had no immediate answer that I could give. Why I am telling this? Because these are our roots. This is our culture. And most of our public affairs are built upon that. And if we build on this particular foundation, then I'm sure there are many takers for this globally. But unfortunately, we are trying to ape the West and also try to come under the pressures of the market economy. In a way, it makes sense. But every now and then, if we try to surrender to the market forces, I'm afraid India will not remain India. Because in the market, you will find Americanization has taken roots. The entire global community is almost trying to ape whatever is happening in America. the brands, the eateries, the apparels, everything is becoming Americanized, which goes against the grain of diversity. Global community will realize that our diversity makes the world more beautiful. And therefore, we have to be watchful towards these forces of Americanization or Westernization for that matter, lest we lose our national identity, which is that of India. Let me give you an example. You know, in Maharashtra, and if you are not aware of this, you should be aware of this, that there is a place called Miraj in Sangli district, which is one of the centers of the manufacturing of string instruments, traditional string instruments. Veena, have you heard about Veena? Rudra Veena, another kind of Veena. And then there is Tanpura, I'm sure you must have heard about and seen as well. So all these instruments generally are manufactured at 4 places in India. One is Tanjore, Miraj, Varanasi, and Kolkata. So Miraj, there is a huge community of manufacturers of string instruments, which is a handicraft. Most of them belong to the Muslim community. So what happened was, they were telling me that we are now if we are creating, let's say, 100 Tanpuras every year in Miraj, 60 of the Tanpuras are exported. Where do you export them? Where are the takers? I asked. They said the takers are there primarily in United Kingdom and in areas like New Jersey and US. So they wanted for Indian Council for Cultural Relations to support them, because sending an instrument is easy. Maintaining it over there is difficult. In India, for example, you have some arrangements where if there are some issues with the strings or with other parts of that instrument, you can go talk to somebody and get it repaired. Even in a city, even in any city, maybe a tier 3 city, it is possible, but not in US. So they asked us that, why don't you, I mean, ICCR keeps on sending artists. So instead of, along with the artists, can you send craftsmen also over here? We, the makers of string instruments, we can go, we can conduct a workshop over there, teach them how to maintain it, and if there are certain issues, some repairs, then and there only conduct over. So we made the change in our rules and regulations, and now their delegations are going. So there are takers. Just scan through Google and you will find there are many sarod players in France, in Germany. You know, there is a Kalia Beli folk dance. Kalia Beli, the most popular song of Kalia Beli version of folk dances is the film Nagin. You know that Nagin dance? So there is one Gulabo Bai, who is a folk artist, and she was awarded Padma Shri very recently. During the COVID-19, when we interacted with such folk art people, she told me that she is conducting, because during COVID, performances were not possible. People had to confine themselves into their 4 walls, and they had to do something, whatever was possible. A talented lady like Gulabo Bai, she decided to conduct online classes in Kalia Beli style of folk dances. And she told me very proudly that she has more than 250 of students from France. And I said, are you charging them? She said, बिल्कुल charge करती हूँ, 1,000 रुपया उनसे लेती हूँ, मेरे एक tuition. That is the confidence. There are takers. Not only that, go and just see some videos about weddings. a middle class society of France. Most of them have some Rajasthani folk dance or folk song, folk singers over there. They perform. Everybody tries to join the dance troupe and they enjoy. Even in villages, I don't know if you have some exposure to the rural parts, the rustic life in our country. If you visit somebody's house, he welcomes you with jaggery and some glass of water. Why? Because eating jaggery, eating something sweet, in a way, awakens your digestive system, makes it more alert to digest all other things that may come there. So there is a science behind. In fact, an agriculture economist here in Maharashtra told me that it's good to say apple a day keeps the doctor away. But it is true only in those parts where apples are grown. In a city like Mumbai, if you eat apple a day, doctor may visit every day. Because that is not suited. Which is that swerve, which is that indigenous aspect of our traditions, our heritage, our culture, which comes into law. And therefore, as I said, our culinary cuisine traditions are also a part of our cultural economy, and we can certainly build upon them because they are pretty much in demand. Take the case of our fashions. Again, in India, I'm sure there must be at least 100 ways of tying a turban. It's an art, and many people are making a living out of that. Are we aware? So we can build upon that. Indian big fat marriages have become a attraction globally. We can work upon that. People already married come over here and get into wedlocks again in Indian style over here. There are umpteen number of examples of these. All these provide you a business of fortune, if I may suggest that. And therefore, we can certainly have some ideas about startups, about entrepreneurship, which are linked to, as I said, our culture. If we do that, I'm sure we will realize that sky is the limit. Because India today has become a center of attraction for many who want something very different. They are bored by the pizzas and the pastas and whatnot. They want something unique, something which has the flavor of that country, something which has the fragrance of the soil of a particular country, and India provides. Which is why I said cultural economy plays an important role in this scheme of things. How do we look forward? I suggest that talented students like you should apply mind and in tune with the academic traditions set by late Padma Desai and later on her student Shruti. Can we think about evolving a policy for cultural? And I'm sure you guys can definitely apply your mind and come out with a decent policy which takes into consideration all aspects of culture. Because as I said, a developed country doesn't mean skyscrapers and highways and metros and bullet trains. All these things are important. But we cannot build them on the ruins of a neglected heritage. We have to build upon the rich heritage that we possess and be aware of that, be conscious of that, without being unnecessarily a victim of some kind of a complex, an inferiority complex, might be. That is not required. As I said, fashion. In Moscow, I came across an association of Indian tailors. And the ambassador over there told me that there are at least 12 tailors who stitch Jodhpuri suits here, and they have become extremely popular. Bandagana, as they're called, famous. So we have everything which the global community wants. What is required is we should have a policy in place. We should have some efforts to promote these things, and then we should also tap the global markets which are waiting for us. We need to be proactively taking our culture to the globe, because India just attracting the global minds is not enough. We have to build upon the attraction. And one of the ways of building upon the attraction, the goodwill that we enjoy all over the world. I haven't come across any country where Indians are not welcome. Maybe some exceptions are there in Africa, but otherwise, Indians are welcome everywhere. And one of the aspects of why Indians are welcome is our colorful culture. If we forget that, we alone will have to pay for that. And therefore, when I talk about a policy for cultural economy, I have some points as a matter of suggestion. I'm just enlisting them one after the other before I close my presentation. Firstly, let us stop differentiating between art and craft. We have a very famous and now a university kind of institutional edifice over here, which is known as JJ School of Art. Now, many in the fine art fraternity, unfortunately, do not consider the Madhubani paintings, the miniature paintings of the Jaipur style, Rajasthan style, or the Oriya Pattachitra, or the Warli paintings in Maharashtra as art. They say, oh, no, they are craft. And only M.F. Hussain and Padma, B. Padma and people like that, great artists. I have deep respect for them. But they are artists. And what about these people? No, they are craftsmen. Who decided? It was the colonial kind of thinking to, in a way, bring in some disintegration. And therefore, they made this categorization that this is art, this is craft. Let us deal with that. Everything is art. He is also an artist, whether a Warli painter or a Madhubani painter or a Pattachitra painter. And therefore, recognize the creativity without discriminating our craftsmen first. We also will have to appreciate the compulsions of the changing world. We have to have the intellectual property rights, the GI tagging, and all those things which are required today. And therefore, for that also, can we think and act in a mission mode that is, again, a pointer for the policy framework. Let us also try and ensure that there is a balance between the market needs and the urge, the innate urge of the artist. Why I am saying so? Because there may be a good market for any of our traditional arts, even pottery, a wonderful stream of, a discipline of our craft culture. But a potter is an artist, remember. He has not opened a factory of pots. So it is his desire, his passion, his mood that will create that piece of art. While the market demands a supply chain uninterrupted, the artist may not cater to this need of a supply chain. So we will have to strike a balance without disrespecting the original creative talent of our artists. Any traditional artists, not confined only to India, even in Africa, for that matter, there could be similar issues. Then, how do we convert our artistic traditions into a fashion? How do we make them a fashion? You know, there is a band which many here in Mumbai, young, talented youth have created, which is titled as Folkswagen. Folkswagen is about folk art. The artists over there play some 70 folk instruments. from Assam to Tamil Nadu to Kashmir to Gujarat, everywhere. They come out with a wonderful ensemble of such musical instruments. In Maharashtra today, I don't know how many of you are aware, but there are two bands which are making waves. One is folk akhyan and the other one is folk lok. People are dancing like maddening after the rhythm, after the tunes of those instruments. So there is potential. Let us build upon that. Let us make it a fashion. Let us develop a market. At the same time, today, in the era of event management, many a times we deny opportunities to the budding talents. I don't know what happens here in this college, but I have seen many colleges where they outsource the conduct of the college social gathering to an event management company. If we do that, our students are not going to learn. Because how to manage a dais, how to take care of the backstage activities, to act on the stage at the same time to provide some kind of a prompting from behind the curtain. All these are nuances which we have to learn. And if we outsource it to an event management company simply to make it more impressive, we are at loss. So let us not get lured by the extravagance. Folk art, artists, budding artists, providing them an opportunity, some kind of an internship, I think are very, very critical, and let us try to find out as to how do we incorporate all these things in our policy for culture. Before I conclude, let me tell you that global community is in love of India. And there are umpteen number of examples, but two examples I can certainly give. That Mr. Bill Clinton, before he visited India and after he visited India, he was a different person. Obama, before he came to, because India is an experience. And this is a fact. India, you cannot understand India simply by reading dozens of books, volumes, and visiting hundreds of websites. That is required. But you can capture the idea of India only after experiencing it. And therefore, people need to visit India. It was not for no reason that Prime Minister appealed that every Indian who have some friends and relations there abroad should ensure that at least 5 people who are residents, who are the citizens of that country, also visit along with the NRI. We need to make a popular movement. Then only people would be able to understand. India is an experience. India cannot be understood simply in an academic manner. Why I am saying so? Let me share with you an incident which I just cannot forget. I'm sure some of you at least might have heard the name of Salzburg Seminar. It's an American foundation, but they operate from Salzburg in Austria. And it's a foundation that keeps on organizing seminars and inviting people from all around the world, all expenses paid kind of an invitation. And it is considered as one of the prestigious seminars. So there was a seminar, I'm a student of democracy, and it was on democracy sometime maybe 20 years before. And one of the resource persons was David Gore Booth. David Gore Booth was a senior British diplomat who had served in India for 6 long years. And along with him, his wife was also there as a part of the invitees. So the seminar happened for 3-4 days. And in between, when we and myself and one more professor from here, Mumbai, both of us were the only Indians there. So Mrs. Gore Booth, extremely in love with India, she used to come to us and have several questions in her mind answered by us. For example, she used to ask us, "Oh, पराठे वाली गली में दिल्ली में अभी भी पराठे मिलते हैं क्या? उसी टाइप के मिलते हैं क्या? And then at Chowpatty, do you get the same bhel puri even now? We enjoyed it." And then she used to share her memories of eating at Chowpatty or in Parathe Valley or wherever. So we had a number of conversations with her. At the end of the seminar, there was then Prime Minister of Latvia, one Mrs. Freiburga, was the chief guest to deliver a valedictory address. And while she was standing here and speaking about democracy, people's power, sovereignty, so on and so forth, Mrs. Gorbooth was sitting at the rear, and we were also in one corner sipping coffee. So she suggested me and my other Indian delegate that please come here. So we went. And while the speech was on, she told me that Vinay, after the lady finishes her speech, go and tell her that, ma'am, you need not lecture us about democracy and sovereignty and people's power. Your entire country, possibly we can accommodate in one local train which plays in Mumbai. It shows the love, the affection, the association, the emotional kind of attachment that the lady had with India. That is the power of India. That is the strength of India. If we build upon that, I'm sure our cultural economy will become one of the strong pillars of our national economy, leading us to a real Viksit Bharat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sahasrabuddhe sir, for your enlightening words. Your insights about cultural economy have added immense value to today's lecture and have given us much to reflect upon. As we bring this memorable lecture to a close, it is fitting that we celebrate the enduring legacy of Dr. Shruti Mishra's mentors, Dr. Padma Desai and Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati, not only by remembering their contributions, but also by carrying forward their spirit of academic excellence. It gives us great pleasure to announce the institution of Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati Best Postgraduate Dissertation Award, which will be conferred each year upon a postgraduate student of our department whose work reflects the same rigor, originality, and commitment to inquiry. For this academic year, the award is being presented to Mr. Francis Vivian for his outstanding dissertation. I request our esteemed dignitaries to kindly join us on stage to present the award to Mr. Vivian. I now invite Rector Father Keith D'Souza and our principal, Dr. Karuna Gopan, to felicitate Dr. Sahasrabuddhe and Brigadier Mishra with a token of our affection and appreciation. Sorry. If the audience have any questions, we'll open the floor to questions now.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
First of all, thank you very much. I've got a PhD in philosophy, so I can appreciate your topic. Because culture is an important aspect of philosophy. In Xavier, we are very fortunate. We are one of the very few departments of ancient Indian culture, history, and archaeology. I think there are only two departments in the whole of the Mumbai University, in Mumbai area. We have an Indian music group. We have Jan Festival, the Theras Museum, Theras Institute. So, and our students also have a lot of extracurricular activities here. So very fortunate. But my question is this: with the national education policy, which we have embraced, we're one of the few colleges which has gone full steam ahead. Professor Karuna is responsible for that. She's taken that. So there we are encouraged to focus more on skill-based education. Huge youth dividend, we need to scale that. So there is an economic aspect to that skill. And that is what is desired, because we need skilled people for our country primarily. Many of them, unfortunately, leave and go abroad and use their skills abroad. But why this clash is here? Because many of these skills are oriented towards non-cultural aspects. So we want, even in economics now, they would like to be skilled, but I don't know how many of them will absorb skills in these areas. So that's a challenge. Whatever we're trying new courses, we are trying started new courses, artificial intelligence, biotechnology, computational biology. But these are the job specific. Placements are very important for our students. So there's a little bit of a concern here. How do you you've given many examples of how culture can be marketed. That is our little clash with skills.
Well, it's a challenge, no doubt about it, because you will have to develop tests also. For example, traditionally, I'm giving all the examples from my own experience because that is the only thing I can share with you. But traditionally, at the occasion of our Independence Day or the Republic Day or any other, Government of India through ICCR sends students of Indian artists abroad and they perform. But more often than not, our ambassadors over there are hell-bent upon sending a Bollywood dance group. Now, if we go simply by the pressures of market, then how can we develop a test for Indian classical dances, let's say Bharatanatyam or Kathak or whatever other things, or even Indian classical music for it. There is such a rich tradition. And everything in our country has some philosophy. Our mudras in our dances are not just gymnastics. They have some connotation, something to communicate. But unfortunately, under the pressures of the market, that is relegated to the periphery, very sadly. And therefore, the cultural policy, so cultural economy aspect also should consider that, well, whatever is popular need to be taken to the market. But to shape the test of the market is also our responsibility. If we do not do that, cultural flattening of the world is definitely something which we cannot avoid.
Yes. Good afternoon, sir. It was a wonderful lecture and we all enjoyed it. I would like to take reference from one of the examples that you shared, and that is about Tanpura that you make from that is there in Meerut. So recently we had one online lectures. That online lecture was organized with artists from USA, and there were two artists. They generally buy Tanpuras from Meerut, singers, both the singers. So what they lamented that Tanpura from Meerut has GI tag because it can be made, that Tanpura in Marathi we say Bhopra, Lal Bhopra. So it can be made and produced only in the soils of Meerut. Okay, but the new generation doesn't know the technique. The old generation people, most of them, they could not pass on that culture to the next generation. Another problem we all face, that is GM food, that is genetically modified and heavy use of chemicals, fertilizers. All these techniques under new agriculture policy, they have already spoiled the soil, or the I would say the traditional method of making that lal bhokra or the pumpkin. Another problem, they said that this is not the only story from Maharashtra, but from Assam, these American artists, they used to buy basuri because they use specific type of bamboo in Assam. Same problem over there, the new generation is not aware how to maintain the traditional old species of bamboo. And since everything under the under the pressure of modification, as you said, market pressure, new techniques and all that, we have lost our indigenous and original things. So she said that Tanpura, which got GI tag, which can be made only in the soil of Meerut, it has lost its original essence. And she said that it's not just about knowing the market, but also it's knowing your roots, going back to the soil And understanding that technique is very important, and that has to be taught in the new education policy. It's not just what market wants, but also understand what your original has given to you. And this is what we got from the American artist. And they said to us that you go back to your roots, go back to your soil, and see what is there. Thank you so much.
Perfect. I mean, I cannot agree with you more. In fact, the kind of adulterations that are coming, we should be wary of that, especially in our languages. In Moscow, at the Moscow State University, Hindi is being taught right since the Soviet days. For 50, 60 years, there is a Hindi department, very active. There is a 70-year-old Hindi professor, a Russian lady. She met me and she complained that the Hindi that I teach in Moscow, unfortunately, is not being spoken in your country. I said, why are you saying so? She said, simple thing, and you are all students of economics. There are two different terms. One is inflation, the other one is price rise. दोनों को हिंदी वाले महंगाई बोलते हैं. ओरिजिनल हिंदी में क्या है? Price rise is महंगाई, inflation is मुद्रास्फीति. मराठी मध्ये चलन फुगवटा. These are two different terms. Try to understand it from your professors. But unfortunately, the Hindi people are using the same term. She said, when I told my students that inflation is different, it is called as mudrasphiti. And they said, but nobody in India speaks in these terms. They don't know what is mudrasphiti. So we are losing our own linguistic culture as well. And we need to be wary. I mean, we need to be conscious.
Sir, thank you for sharing the lecture. I just want to point out that in India, the problem is that the culture is not known to the people, the general public, firsthand. Right. So I think currently the government has come up with this mission, National Mission on Manuscripts. So the translation, basically the idea being that we translate the ancient manuscripts, which are mostly in the languages like Sanskrit or Prakrit and Pali, mainly, to the general, so that the general public can understand this. I think this is important and things will change for the good with this mission. Firstly, because most of these MNCs, which we see, they capitalize on the ancient knowledge for profitability. Right. And secondly, it will also enhance our soft diplomacy. You see, countries like you mentioned Ramayana, Mahabharata. So it is quite famous in countries East, China, Japan. You see, where Ramayana, Mahabharata, these are like treated as heroes, not as such. So I think it will also enhance, along with the economy aspect, our soft diplomacy will be enhanced in the.
Reflection and question.
Yes.
Thank you so much for the wonderful session, sir. I genuinely really enjoyed the session. So my question to you is, what I can observe from my surrounding is, like the students of my age who live in a tier 1 city or maybe tier 2 city as well, students from there majorly think of either applying abroad or going into MNCs, working there. And the tier 3 cities, their major concern is their next meal. For them, their next meal is something that is very important. So when we have a generation like this, how do you feel we bridge that gap wherein like a cultural economy would flourish? Because if we see the employment opportunities that are related to the cultural economy are not capitalizing enough, or the incentives there are not like convincible to the generation out there who's very opportunistic and also a little bit individualistic out there, if we see. So what is your take on this? Where should we work on as a nation so that we bridge this gap and we like allow the flow of cultural economy so that the generation out there is also aware of the culture and it's also capitalizing on it? Thank you.
Good question and very pertinent one. I think we will have to work both ways. On the one hand, we will have to cultivate a proper understanding of our culture amongst the Gen Z and whatnot. On the other hand, we will have to also create a market for the cultural products of our own. We will have to make the fashion out of it. That is what I was trying to explain. And working on both these fronts is certainly not easy. I am aware of that. But if we don't work on these fronts in a more resolute manner, with a result orientation attached to that, the generations coming after 50 years are not going to forgive us. Because, as I said, India is India because of all these things. Otherwise, India could have become any other country for them. We have many visitors coming over here, and they keep on telling us that Indians need to blow their trumpet more loudly. But our own people are refusing to listen to that. What is the point in trumping? I mean, our blowing our trumpet loudly to the global community. Global community definitely wants to listen, but first of all, we need to make our own communities over here listen to the point that we are linking with culture. So we will have to work both ways.
Thank you to the audience for your enlightening questions. Did
I'll just update, sir. So this is just sharing of the things that are happening. Thanks to the national education policy, I think the Indian knowledge system has come in. We have a Department of Interreligious Studies. I would also like to add on in extracurricular activities, we do have Indian performing arts. IMG is one of them. In fact, we just finished with Malar, which is our annual fest that we have, and in that also we had these sections of Indian classical music and Indian classical dance. And just to add on, we under NEP because it allowed us Indian languages to be introduced. We have introduced Sanskrit, and to our surprise, every year per batch, we at least get a minimum of 30 students. And in fact, they just participated in one of the Sanskrit, dance, drama, and they won gold medals in that. So just sharing about how we are also, helping in nurturing the Indian cultural economy, hopefully in future. Thank you.
Have got a doubt come, I will say, suggestion come question. Basically, sir, my doubt is we have got a new education policy which has again come NEP 2020. But unfortunately, it is still not linked. The education policy of India is still not linked to the economy of India. And until and unless that thing happens, probably the goal of achieving Viksit Bharat 2047 I'm not saying it won't be possible to achieve that, but it may have to go through a tough phase. In economy, you people are aware, basically three main sectors: the agriculture, the service, and the manufacturing sector. India's biggest problem is that 58% of the human resources are committed to a sector which is contributing only 11% to the GDP, that is agriculture. How do we now move from whether, again, there are economists who are debating, can we continue on the same model which our Southeast neighbors, they did successfully, that is weaning away the agriculture manpower to the manufacturing and then service, or as Raghuram Rajan has suggested, now India should go for service over manufacturing. That I leave it up to the experts. My problem is why a child goes to a school, say at the age of 3, and after doing his post-graduation, his or her post-graduation or PhD, comes out after 22, 23 years of academic orientation, which comes under Ministry of Human Resources in a way when I look at it. One day a ceremony happens when he is into all that robes of the convocation ceremony, and in a hall he is given in a ceremony a degree, and thereafter the HR ministry says to him or her, goodbye, now you are on your own. Now that is what my question is, Why should we not be teaching only those disciplines in our curriculum which are going to contribute to one of the sectors of economy? Like say by 2047, what does the service sector, manufacturing sector and agriculture sector of India wants? How we can create the education policy which will continue to feed those requirements of those three economic sectors. Today's topic of cultural economy, in these three major heads, how can agriculture sector be weaned, the cultural economy can wean away the surplus manpower, human resource of agriculture sector. And that is where the education policy linking with economic policy of the country is of paramount importance. Otherwise, we will keep on teaching disciplines which will be only useful to select few of picking up there as one of the options in the civil services exams. How many anthropologists are of, how are they contributing after studying, say, anthropology? Only few professors who will serve for about 30 odd years. Yes. So that is what I am saying. My saying is, unless until my economy and education policy they get synchronized, Viksit Bharat goal may be facing certain hurdles. Your take on that?
Your concerns are not unfounded, but let me explain that the national education policy provides for that exactly. For example, just a few meters away, there is the Skill University of Government of Maharashtra over here. And in that university, if tomorrow I go there with maybe a group of Viraj artisans, then the vice chancellor over there is ready to create a diploma course in string instrument making and offer it to the Viraj youngsters, young artists over there. And they will get their vocation at the same time, they will get some dignity because they will be diploma holders. Likewise, we are here and the national education policy provides for that abundantly, that the knowledge products that will come about will be recognized and converted into a formal education system. So it is going to happen, it is taking a little because our people think only traditionally. All these things are very required, including, as I said, instrument making or similar floriculture, for example. There is such a great art in flower ornaments, which in South, for example, are very famous. So likewise, all these traditional things require to be converted into knowledge products because knowledge creation is inherent to them and then taken